This is Marco Reus.
This is Shinji Kagawa.
This is Nuri Shahin.
Hello, this is Jadon Sancho.
And you're listening to the Yellowwallpod podcast.
Hello and welcome to episode 377 of the Yellowwallpod. I'm your host Stefan Butzko, and today we will talk about Borussia Dortmund reaching the German Cup final by beating Holstein Kiel, and if the Black and Yellows can keep their winning streak alive against RB Leipzig, as they are in hot pursuit of the Champions League spots. For that and more joins me Matthias Zug. Hello Matthias, how are you doing?
Hello, Stefan. I'm doing quite well. How are you doing today?
I'm doing good, thank you. It's a nice Thursday in Philadelphia. I tried to play some soccer today, but a friend of mine who I usually kick the ball around with did not have time. So instead, I played a little bit of Rocket League, which is also why this episode will be cut short a little, because I actually made plans with my friends from Germany to play Rocket League in 45 minutes-ish. So, Matthias, that means by then we have to sort of be wrapped up. But the good news is there is not that much to talk about, I feel like, because due to the result, Dortmund had, it quite easy going against the second division side from Kiel, who, as everyone knows, had to be in quarantine for, I think, 4 weeks, and then now played a lot of games. And Kiel looked a little depleted. Dortmund obviously were without Erling Haaland. The reason for his absence was a Charlie horse, but as we record today on Thursday, he is yet to return to team training, so I'm not entirely sure what's up with that, but we'll talk with that in a minute. So, Matthias, a 5-0 win, all goals before the halftime whistle, a brace by Gio Reyna. What was the game for you like?
A lot easier than I expected, to be honest. I was expecting much more from Kiel. I mean, I'm glad to know that our expert, Stefan, picked the scoreline perfectly. I just didn't think you picked it for 45 minutes.
No, I was a bit anxious when the 5-0 went in. I think wasn't that the deflected Bellingham shot, and I was like, okay, maybe my prediction is not going to hold because it's already 5-0 and there's still a whole half to go. But
Yeah, after that it was, as we say in German, Schongang-Fußball. So, I mean, they just put it kind of in neutral and cruised it home. At least after the third goal, it was you kind of knew it was going to happen. Kiel at that point, I mean, they still tried. Finn Bartels was probably their most active player, which does say a lot given that he is definitely towards the end of his professional footballing career. And but they were also kind of like, all right, there's no chance of coming back in this one. We're not going to make the cup final, but we are definitely right in the mix for promotion to the Bundesliga. I will caution Kiel a little bit there. I mean, yes, we have quarantine and all those extenuating circumstances. If Kiel get promoted, they really need to upgrade in a lot of places, because it was just so easy for Dortmund to stroll through them and score goals. I don't really recall Dortmund having quite that easy of a game in a long time in the first 45 minutes. Yes, Kiel had their opportunities. I think they also struck the frame of the goal once. But overall, it just never really seemed like Kiel were going to do much. The second half, Dortmund were kind of like, all right, we got 5 goals. Let's not go too crazy here. But unfortunately, of course, the two big takeaways were easy win, you're in the cup final, and the other one, of course, is unfortunately Matteo Morey got a quite massive injury, and I remember having it on and then just hearing the scream And I was like, oh boy. And then you saw the replay, and as someone who has blown every ligament in a knee before, I was like, oh, this is not good. Just the movement of his leg and his body. I was like, that's everything gone. I haven't looked at what the diagnosis is. I think it got revealed today or yesterday. I didn't really look any deeper into it other than it's probably really, really bad. And given that he is a young player who's already, you can say, injury plagued in his career, he was at Barcelona, he has been at Dortmund, and to have this happen, obviously his season is done. I think there's a good chance that 2021 is done for him, and that's really upsetting for a player that I feel has had a good trajectory and development overall in 2021, and now you kind of lose a lot of that because you're rebuilding, your physicality at this point.
Yeah, so I think he tore his ACL, he tore an outer ligament, and did you also just say the capsule was torn? Or whatever happened? I'm not entirely sure how this sort of translates, but basically he had surgery now, and he will have to undergo surgery again because they haven't even tried to mend his, I think, ACL. So obviously it's really devastating because as you said, he already had a pretty bad injury when he was still playing for Barcelona's under 19, and then this shoulder injury right before the season started when he joined Dortmund. That was also really unlucky, and this injury again. And it was really gruesome. I sort of regret even looking when they showed the first replay because I was nauseous for pretty much the rest of the day, and I don't know. I just felt really sad, to be honest. That was the overwhelming feeling for the rest of my day. I couldn't even really enjoy reaching the cup final because I just felt really bad for the kid, and that's obviously a big shame because he was just finding his feet again in Dortmund. There was this period where you, Matthias, where I would say is hell-bent fair on selling him, or at least saying that he's probably not Dortmund caliber.
I just didn't think he was good enough. Yeah, at that time he was a defensive liability at that time.
He was. He definitely was, and he did turn it around and improved. He's obviously not the best right back in the Bundesliga by far, but at least he obtained or attained a level where you can rely on him a little bit, and obviously he was ahead of Meunier in the pecking order. Obviously the detractors would say that that's not hard to achieve, but nevertheless, so that's obviously a big bummer and a big blow, especially I think he came on for Piszczek in the 62nd minute or so, and then like 10 minutes later he was already carried off the stretcher, and it's obviously a super painful injury. And Tesic said after the game something along the lines of, you people know the player Morey, where we know the human being Morey, or the person that Matteo Morey is. And you could just see that the entire team was really, really, really shaken by this, because I think he's very popular in the team, and that obviously sucks. So I just wish him a speedy recovery and hope that this is not career ending like it was for Dario Scuderi, for example, because this is obviously a very big injury, and a knee should never bend like this. But I also kind of already want to move on because this is bad enough. I don't want to think about it. I don't want to have the mental image. So Matthias, other than that, obviously, we had the brace by Gio Reyna. What do you make of this? I mean, obviously it was against the second division team, but nevertheless, I thought he had another good game.
Yeah, I mean, if you take all the caveats out of it, I think it was a very good game for him also in terms of continuing his form trend and confidence trend, because he's very clearly a young player that relies on confidence. Like, he's not at that professional level where you can will yourself through difficult times, like I believe Marco Reus has done this season quite effectively, whereas he's still a player at the young age where the head drops and everything just drops. There's no picking himself back up. So having games like he has in the last few weeks, given the importance of these final 4 games that Dortmund have to play this season in league and cup final, it's perfect timing for this to happen, because it gives Terzic more options to work with and makes Dortmund a little bit less predictable in that aspect. So I thought it was great from him. I thought Marco Reus had a good game as well. So overall, it was the perfect timing for this match, actually, if you look ahead to what's here to come in the next few weeks.
Yeah, I mean, I was right with my prediction. Obviously, it's also luck, but I think we saw exactly what I predicted, to put the 5-0 prediction into context, and that Dortmund will take this game 100% seriously. And I also think that the pitch honestly helped them, because they wanted to play football and they tried to combine a lot. And, I wouldn't say the goals, minus maybe the Bellingham strike, which was deflected, they weren't really fluky. There were some really great build-up moments in there. I'm a big fan, again, of Lukas Piszczek and the way he finds other players in half space. I think that's very helpful. On the other side, we had Emre Can with a very good assist. I think, was it the one to Reus? I think so. That was also a very well taken goal. And I mean, the first 3 goals, Reina scored in the 16th minute. Then you had Reina again, which was another cool goal, because I think there were like a couple of back heels involved in there, and an awesome through ball. And then you had Marco Reus scored in the 26th minute already. And that really, ended the competition. Hazard obviously in was it the 32nd minute or so, just, pouncing on the Kiel mistake, and then Bellingham again, this deflected goal. And that was that. And I think for Dortmund and for their entire swagger, if you will, this really helps, because they once again showed to themselves that, they can play football. Because at this point of the season, obviously results are important and whatnot, but having some playing culture, I think, is also equally important. And if players gel and make that happen, I'm very happy about it, because to me, a whole season is also about development, and there are obviously stretches where you play your best combination football, and maybe at the end you run out of steam a little bit, and then things get a little tense again. I guess that's usually the course how a season goes, but for Dortmund to dissect Kiel the way they did, still is a very positive sign. So that, I guess, is encouraging for the next 2 games against Leipzig, and of course the Saturday match against Leipzig, which is for Dortmund another home match. So we just looked it up before in the head-to-head, and from the many games Dortmund played against Leipzig, from the many home games, Dortmund only won 2. But obviously, Leipzig, with the poor history they have, it's only been 4 home games against Leipzig, and I guess I think it was in 2019, this weird 3-3 draw where Dortmund threw the game pretty much away, because I think Julian Brandt scored this world-class goal, and then straight after halftime, Dortmund just gave 2 goals away, and then you had Dortmund made it 3-2 again, and then I think Patrick Schick, I don't know how close it was to the end, but he equalized again. But in the last 2 games, Dortmund were clearly the better side, and Dortmund did win 2-0 and 3-1 against Leipzig. And I think that those games, and both happened in Leipzig, were one of the most dominant outings by Dortmund, where they were clearly the better team and clearly deservedly won, and Leipzig did not look good in either of these games, and that's sort of what I'm hoping for again, that Dortmund play at their absolute best, and I think they're in a shape right now where they can achieve that, and Leipzig maybe play the way they did against Liverpool. I also don't know, Matthias, I guess that's the first question to you before we talk about anything else. How do you think having the cup final changes the approach of Leipzig? Because Dortmund have 2 must-win games, but for Leipzig, this is not a must-win game. They're already qualified for the Champions League. They're not going to win the championship. So in the Bundesliga, they can, not reveal their hand or whatever you want to call it, and choose different tactics or different player styles, or I don't know. How do you think Julian Nagelsmann, the Bayern-bound Julian Nagelsmann, will approach this, and Leipzig? Do you think they will sort of maybe even throw this game in the hope that they can then surprise Dortmund in the cup, or is it just silly?
No, I don't think they're going to throw the game. I do expect a rotated side. The cup has a huge importance to both of these coaches, who both will not be coaching these teams next season. We can't forget that. Edin Terzic probably has the greater motivation overall because this is essentially his boyhood hometown team. So he wants to win that, but he knows the other big goal is get Dortmund into the Champions League. So you have to beat Leipzig twice in the span of just a few days. For Leipzig and Nagelsmann, I do expect a rotated side, because for Nagelsmann, this next week, Thursday, is his first real, I guess not his first opportunity at a title, but he could sign off from Leipzig with a cup win that is I'd say the chances are very good that he could do it. I mean, Leipzig are very good. They're not outmatched by Dortmund. In fact, you may even make the case that they're a little bit better than Dortmund overall. And, in the current state, if Dortmund are 100% fit, I think 100% Dortmund versus 100% fit Leipzig, and it's a push. But I'd say the motivation is clearly focused on Thursday, and Nagelsmann will look at this match, I would assume, as a way to, kind of analyze Dortmund a little bit further ahead of the big cup match. So I do expect, what is this, another third time I've said it? I expect a rotated Leipzig side. I don't think they're going to throw it, because at the end of the day, any player that's on the pitch wants to win. And for Leipzig, it's kind of like one of those things. For Dortmund, a win against Leipzig means a lot for the fans. For Leipzig, a win against Dortmund means a lot, because obviously there's the back and forth between a real club and a marketing franchise in Leipzig.
Yeah, when you said means a lot for the fans for Dortmund, I expected you to say means a lot to the brand for Leipzig.
Well, and it means a lot for the people that do go to the stadium in Leipzig. There's a massive inferiority complex there, rightfully so. And because they keep on being told, rightfully so, that they're not a real football club, that they are just a marketing franchise brand and nothing more. And so if they get a chance to put one over on a club like Dortmund that leans very heavily on its history, tradition, passionate, large fan base, and so on, then they revel in that. So I think, and for Nagelsmann as well, because again, next season he's going to be at Bayern, and as such, Dortmund are one of the biggest with Leipzig. Those are the 2 main contenders against Bayern for the title. So there's a lot of motivation here, but I don't think that motivation is necessarily going to crystallize itself in the Bundesliga match this weekend. I think that's all going to come out in the cup tie next week, Thursday.
Yeah, it's a bit of an odd one that the schedule, puts the cup final and the league game so close to each other. There's not even a week between, and I don't know. It's funny too, because Dortmund absolutely must win the league match. That's in the bigger context, maybe even more important for Dortmund, because requalifying for the Champions League will obviously help them a bit more financially and obviously in the long term for the future. But in the meantime, you obviously want to win the cup when you are in the final. no doubt about it. So it's also weird because Leipzig right now are a bit of a weird side for me because they have been sitting quite quite easily in second place. I mean, they had the title push for going on for a little bit, but then they lost to Bayern Munich, and I think that ended sort of their title hopes. Then they beat Werder Bremen 4-1, and then a scoreless draw against Hoffenheim, a freak loss against Cologne, then a 2-0 win against Stuttgart, and then obviously the 120 minutes against Bremen again, where they scored very late in the overtime of extra time. So, yeah, that was obviously heartbreaking for everyone who just wanted to see some freaking penalties, because the game itself wasn't really good between Leipzig and Bremen. But that's sort of also the point I'm trying to make here, is that Leipzig, I think, have massive struggles when it comes to finishing their chances. I think this is probably the biggest problem they have this season, and there's this debate going on sometimes whether had they had Haaland, who obviously was a Salzburg player and he was in the Red Bull franchise, if you will, if they had him as well, whether they would be champions or at least very close to Bayern right now, because of all the chances they create but not finish. But at the same time, right now, I often feel like Leipzig, don't necessarily play at their highest level that I've seen them play this season. They are often very, they keep a decent amount of possession, but they do lack some urgency to really go forward and push for it. And this is obviously something that Dortmund have been guilty of for great parts this season too. But it's weird to have Leipzig be prone to that as well. I'm not entirely sure what the reasons for that are, because I honestly don't really watch them much. And Matthias, I have a hunch you have the same. So I don't know if you have a diagnosis from afar or you don't.
Not really. I mean, I try to avoid them like the plague. Personally, because I hate them and everything they stand for and represent. And so, yeah, I mean, I obviously watch them against Dortmund. I do watch them in the highlight shows, but I try to make it a point about not sitting through any games that they're in, just because every time I see that shirt, it just ticks me off. So I just assume not. I know that doesn't necessarily sound very professional if you're looking at it from a coverage of the sport and the league, but I don't really care. So
no, I think it's fair enough. So what I find when you talk about what Leipzig have that Dortmund do not is, I think obviously their goalkeeper is better than Peter Gulaschi, and I think with Upamecano and Konate, you have two absolutely top defenders at center back. But that being said, even those are prone to errors. That also happens to them. And as much as it pains me to say it, since he did play for Dortmund once, but Kevin Campbell, I think this season has been quite pivotal for them in midfield. As a holding midfielder, he has been not only running around a lot, but I think he has given this team a lot of structure, and the way he plays, the way he distributes the ball. I think that he has become a key player for Leipzig. And if you've seen Campbell play for Dortmund, and was it Leverkusen where he went after Dortmund? I don't even remember really, but the honest truth is, you could see shades of that, but now he has been way more consistent, and obviously the other players as well are also on a pretty good level. I mean, be it Mukiele or Haidara in midfield or Sabitzer, I think they are all playing a good season. Angelino has a fantastic season as a left back or wing back, or however you want to call it. His crosses have been really fantastic and been quite a danger. And you can see that Julian Nagelsmann usually finds a way to make a left back or left wing back shine. He has done the same to Nico Schulz, if you will, but Angelino is certainly the better footballer, and you can see how that works. Obviously, I think the problem that Leipzig have are called Zerlot, Olmo, and Paulsen, because neither of those players right now are really as prolific in front of goal as they should be. And of course, one of the Leipzig stars usually is Emil Forsberg, but he is also having a really weird season. Obviously was involved in the winning goal because he scored it, and of course a player that I always fear, and maybe that's just from a Dortmund perspective, I'm a little traumatized, but Hwang Hee-chan, because he is obviously South Korean, and I feel like South Korean players somehow always score against Dortmund. But if you look at the squad that they have and the consistency, I don't think they were really injury plagued this season. You can see why they finished second, because it's I think minus the striker position, it's a really well-rounded squad, and it's not a very old team either. So they've played a lot of very dominant and very physical football, and I guess you can, if you want to, commend them for that. But I don't know, kind of feels weird to always say, oh, well, Leipzig are doing great work. Yeah, well, if you have like 8 farm teams across the world, I guess it makes things a bit easier. I mean, Jesse Marsch, who will replace Nagelsmann, is basically from their Austrian farm team, and he before then trained their New York farm team. Matthias, I don't know about you, but to me that's almost an insult to competitive football as it is, because I feel like they have an advantage that they just should not have.
Yeah, and isn't there another striker, Daka, who is coming from Salzburg to Leipzig, I believe? Yes, Patson Daka, who I remember reading he'll be the most expensive Zambian player. Okay, but the key thing is he's coming for, odds are, not a fair market value from Salzburg to Leipzig, and that is a path that many have tread before, and many will tread again. And yeah, I mean, it's obviously, I've heard people say, well, Dortmund and Bayern, they have their second teams. Yeah, that's not the same thing, because Leipzig obviously also have youth teams on top of that, along with professional grade teams. Now, having affiliate clubs that funnel players is becoming more commonplace. I mean, you see it like Wolves now have a very tight connection with Grasshoppers in Switzerland, where they'll send a lot of players out on quote-unquote loan. I know Vitesse have had that for a long time with Chelsea. Lille and Boavista in Portugal have that type of setup, and you're seeing it more and more. And obviously Manchester City have that with New York City FC, Melbourne City, and so on. So I feel like it's a direction that more and more are going. The Pozzo family has done this for years with Udinese and Granada and so on, and Watford. But with Leipzig, it seems significantly more egregious, because for the most part, these are teams that have just been completely artificially created to funnel this type of system and to funnel more overall marketing awareness of Red Bull, which is just, it's funny to me because I don't feel like that's really a brand that needs the marketing awareness. I mean, they're already thrown up everywhere else, so it's just a weird one for me, in my opinion. I don't think there are a lot of people that have never heard of Red Bull at this point anymore, but, Coca-Cola keeps advertising, and, I think everybody's heard of them before. But I hate it so deeply. And when the Super League thing came up, which is also the kind of the ultimate commercialism and over globalization of the sport, which is the dark side of globalization of the sport. Leipzig or Red Bull, not Leipzig, but Red Bull fall completely within that same sphere. And it's a little bit different than the affiliate links that I mentioned before, because this is clearly just focused on a non-football oriented system beyond that. And that's what just makes it significantly more egregious, especially in the 50+1 environment that is German football.
Yeah, definitely. I don't know. I feel like the existence of Leipzig is just a slap in the face. I mean, I'm happy for every East German club that can make it in German football, but please let it be Dynamo Dresden or some club and not...
Or anybody. I mean, any Magdeburg, a European Cup winner. And the people that keep on saying, yeah, but Leipzig, what's the difference to Wolfsburg and Bayer Leverkusen and Bayer Uerdingen back in the day? I said, well, those are Werksvereine. They were founded, 100 years plus ago for the people who worked in the factories. That's not what this is. And as far as East German football, I've always said RB Leipzig picked Leipzig not because they care about East German football, but because it made sense. You had a stadium already there. You had a region that was devoid of any professional team, and they are gobbling up any talent of any decent level in Eastern Germany and completely gutting all the traditional clubs there, whether they were East German clubs or Eastern German clubs, so pre or post the GDR. They are just gutting them completely. There's no reason for a Michael Ballack type player or Marcel Schmelzer type player to even consider the youth team of Chemnitz at this point anymore, because you'll have Leipzig come in and offer them big money and their families big money. And you combine that with the fact that most of Eastern Germany is economically more depressed than Western Germany, certain regions notwithstanding, of course, but on average. And that's just a proposition that these families are forced then to consider and take. And I don't blame them for doing it. I blame Leipzig for doing it, but I understand why they're doing it. That doesn't mean I like it, but they are completely gutting East German football in this way. They're making it less competitive for East German clubs. And that's why I just don't believe under the current framework and with RB Leipzig being who they are, that we will see a real East German football team beyond, say, Union Berlin right now, competing in the Bundesliga for quite some time. I don't see Rostock. I don't see Dresden, Zwickau, Chemnitz, Carl Zeiss Jena, Magdeburg pushing into the Bundesliga in the foreseeable future.
So enough about Leipzig, Matthias. Let's move on to Dortmund, where we obviously still have to talk about the lineup. I wouldn't make too many changes to the team that beat Kiel. However, there are a couple of names I would probably shift around. Dahoud, I assume, would be back in the starting lineup for Emre Can. And if Haaland can make it, then I'll put him in for Hazard. I think I would not drop Gio Reyna at this point. I just don't see too many reasons right now to change things up. I mean, you have Piszczek as a right back. You get Hummels back, I think, as center back after he set his suspension against Wolfsburg. Akanji is in a really good form, and I feel like we have maybe underappreciated that on the Yellowwallpod a little bit on what a fantastic form he is in right now. And as a left back, obviously it's going to be Guerrero, even though I think I've spotted a Marcel Schmelzer back on a training pitch this week, which obviously it would be fantastic if he could get a couple of minutes somewhere before he ends his Dortmund career. So there's that. But Matthias, Dortmund will have to replace Jude Bellingham. So it's Dahoud, and then is it going to be Can for you, or is it going to be Delaney?
It has to be Delaney. I mean, for me, it has to be Delaney at that point. Just because, I mean, Can offers also the combative nature and is probably a better box-to-box player overall, better physicality than Delaney, but Delaney is the cooler head. And I just feel like you kind of need that against Leipzig. I mean, if you're going to go with a central midfield trio, then obviously you play all three. But given that you don't have Bellingham as a backup, it'd probably be better to just do a double pivot and go with a 4-2-3-1. And then for me, it's got to be Delaney and Dahoud.
Yeah, the question, if you play a 4-3-3 and you say play Delaney, Can, and Bellingham, do you then put Royce, Reina, and Sancho up front, or would you then put Hazard in there instead of Reina because he is he has a bit of a different playing style than Reina?
I think you meant Dahoud instead of Bellingham in the 4-3-3.
Yeah. Sorry.
But no, I would play Hazard over Reina then to start with, simply if you care about defensive responsibilities. Reina's become better in his defensive positioning and tracking back and stuff like that, but Hazard, in my opinion, is a bit better than that. He's also a bit better as a presser, and he's better at holding on to the ball than Gio Reyna. And given that you have the cup match in a few days, I think that may not be a bad one to make, even though I hate breaking up hot streaks for players. So in that case, if you're going to go 4-2-3-1, then you've got Sancho, Royce, and I'd probably put Reina behind Haaland. If it's 4-3-3, yeah, you can make the argument for Sancho, Royce, and Hazard, and basically, if you don't have Haaland as a striker, to rotate them through those three positions, because all three could play all three positions.
Yeah, I agree. It's a tough one, but I'm sure Terzic will figure it out. It's also important that you bring something off the bench that can really help, because against Leipzig, you will at some point will make a substitution. I really hope it's not going to be around the 70th minute. I think that Dortmund bring on some fresher legs sooner rather than later, because that's just very important. And then, of course, I don't know how the cup final will go in terms of how many minutes you will have to play there. I don't know if I want to see Jadon Sancho play 120 minutes, for example, right now. So if there's a way to maybe still manage his load, that would be superb. But in such a game against Leipzig, I find it hard to imagine that you do not just play him for the full 90 minutes. So there was an entire week between the Kiel match and this Bundesliga match. So I'm actually quite confident now that Jadon Sancho is actually, far enough that he can handle 90 minutes against Leipzig without picking up another injury. But it's obviously in the time of the season where some injuries can always creep in. Obviously Sancho had some longer time off, so he isn't affected by that. But it's a weird one, and I really don't know whether Haaland will be fit or not, and I also don't assume we'll find out anytime soon, because usually if it were an away game, we'd know just when the team starts traveling to set away destination, but that's obviously not the case. So my hunch is probably that he won't play on Saturday, but then feature in the cup final, but you never know. So yeah, Matthias, I don't really have a prediction yet in my head. I'm feeling a bit of anxiety looking to this game. Maybe even unfounded anxiety. I don't know. But what do you think will the final scoreline be?
It's a tough one. I unfortunately, it all comes down to Leipzig and who they put in, how they rotate. Now, we know Dortmund can frustrate Leipzig. Obviously, they did that earlier in the season in the first really good, successful match from Terzic, where Leipzig had an insane amount of crosses. So if they can replicate that in that same type of scenario, then I think Dortmund will win this one 2-1. So I'm just going to go with a 2-1, honestly. I can't pick Leipzig to get a result against Dortmund. I just physically cannot do that.
See, the thing is, Leipzig are the best defense in the Bundesliga on paper, but at the same time, I feel like Dortmund can certainly crack them. And I obviously have a million times more confidence with Haaland in the team, because he is exactly the type of player that Leipzig do struggle against. I mean, yes, they have Upamecano and Konate, and they are all very fast and have pace to stop a player like Haaland. But the thing is, Leipzig do play with a high line one way or another, and Dortmund will one way or another find a way to get in behind that and punish that. So if Haaland plays, I think Dortmund will win 3-1. If Haaland does not play, I don't know. This could be a draw. But For the results' sake, I'm once again picking a 3-1 win, and I'm going to stick to that because I've fared well with that prediction. So Matthias, I think that sort of wraps it up. Unless you have anything other to annotate.
No, I mean, I know there's been a lot of chatter about Mino Raiola and Erling Haaland, but I feel like that's something that we will definitely get into when there is either more substantive, that's the word, right?
Yes.
Real news. Real word. Oh, God, is it Friday yet? Or post,
what a week.
When this
Wednesday.
No, it's Thursday.
No, I know, but I meant the meme.
Next week. Yeah. Anyway, you're editing, right? So no, I think we can get into the whole Haaland Sancho transfer saga in a few weeks when the season's done and dusted, and we kind of do a preview type episode.
Yeah, I know. It's also something I don't really want to think about right now, to be honest, because we're like in the middle of the season and everything is still up to play for. I honestly don't want to think about whether Haaland and Sancho or just Sancho are leaving and for how much money and what can Dortmund do with it. Are they going to overpay for shitty right back or however they would spend that money? I know there are a lot of people right now who cannot get enough of this, but I honestly just want the season to end first, and then I can focus on transfers really, or at least for the season to end in terms of Dortmund have nothing left to play for. Then I can focus on the next season. But in the meantime, I just if it's the remaining games that Jadon Sancho has, I just want to enjoy that, and then we talk about everything else, I think. So, I think without much further ado, we can end it here. So, Matthias, please tell our listeners where to find you on the interwebs.
You can find me on Twitter at Matthiasuk.
Very well. You can find me at Stefan Butzko on Twitter. You can find all of us at Yellowwallpod on Twitter and Facebook. If you want to subscribe to this show in its various means, then please go to either YouTube, iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, Spotify, etc., or anywhere else you get your podcast. And of course, if you want to contribute financially, please go to patreon.com/theyellowwall. Now, I don't know if there will be an episode next week because I will be in Germany. And first of all, I don't know if I'll bring over my podcast gear because I will travel rather lightly. And I also don't know if I have time because it's going to be a really busy week for myself. So I can't promise anything, but maybe I'll log on and record something with someone on a potato microphone. We'll see. Until then, as always, thank you for listening and goodbye.